8 years ago, voters in Walsenburg chose to disband their police department. Now, their city has no choice but to stand one up in just 3 months. News 5's Megan Cloherty tells us how the national shortage of law enforcement officers is playing out in the town.
I'm Megan Cloherty. There's a unique rule of law in Walsenburg. There's no police chief, there's no police department. In fact, the Walsenburg County Sheriff's Office patrols both the county and the city. But late last month, on a Thursday night, the sheriff called it off.
At the end of the day, on September 26th, Sheriff Bruce Newman sent this letter, shooting a jolt of panic through the small town of Walsenburg. Despite being in the middle of a negotiation with the city, the sheriff was reversing course, announcing the end of his office's service to the city starting January 1st.
I got elected to be the sheriff of Walsenburg County, not the chief of police of Walsenburg. And when it starts taking a toll on the county and the citizens and my officers, it's just not worth it.
The city council called a special meeting, unsure of whether a deal could still be reached or if it should be scrambling to form a police department. And the question on everyone's lips, why is the sheriff deciding this now? So we went to Walsenburg to ask him.
The county is getting neglected because it takes 2 officers per shift within the city limits of Walsenburg all the time. That's all I have on duty sometimes is 2 officers.
Were you missing calls in the county?
No, they were just delayed. If we were tied up, like it takes 2 guys to do a domestic violence, and then we had a call of a possible burglary or a suspicious vehicle or something, we didn't have anybody to break free to run out there right away.
City leaders tell News 5 they were surprised by the sheriff's notice. They'd spent the last 2 years paying the sheriff's office for service without a contract and had a new one in the works.
Do you think you're putting the city in a bad position?
If I was just to walk off, yes, but we're not going to walk off. We're giving them the opportunity to start their police department. We've offered to help train them.
Walsenburg has considered a police department before, commissioning economic research firm KGW LLC last year to determine what it would cost. The firm estimated a conservative operating budget of $1.1 million. The mayor and the sheriff both say the latest contract on the table allotted his office a budget of $900,000.
Mayor says that you put in a request for $20,000 for you to be paid to cover the city, to continue to cover the city.
Yes.
Tell me why you made that request.
The last 8 years I've been doing it with no compensation. It's more than doubled my workload. And usually in a larger agency or larger counties, the salaries are set on your duties and stuff. And I wasn't getting compensated for it. So it was a request, but that had absolutely nothing to do with my decision. Absolutely nothing.
You understand that that's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you made that request, as I understand it, and then they said no, and then you came back and said, well, we're going to end our contract.
Yeah, no, that absolutely had nothing to do with it. If they offered me $100,000 right now extra to do it, I still wouldn't do it.
I spoke with a few people in Walsenburg who all agreed this move by the sheriff was coming. In fact, one man told me it was like a pimple that needed to be popped. But each resident agreed that they need to stand up their own police department that can focus solely on the city.
Part of the problem is that we have a lot of drugs here, and there have been multiple break-ins.
News 5 was there when Walsenburg City Council voted to create its own police force.
I believe we need to not sit around and wait. We're going to have to be ready for this.
8 years ago, Walsenburg residents voted to dissolve the police department. Walsenburg City Attorney Daniel Hyatt says the city can decide to resurrect the police department without voter input. It's because of how the agreement between the city and the county was worded, allowing either side to end the deal after 3 years. But starting a new department is not easy, and the lion's share of that work falls on Mayor Gary Visani.
So we have in the budget now about that $900,000, which we offered them to start this next year with. So we'll operate on that, and we're possibly going to try to put a ballot issue together for next year.
Mayor Visani says the next step is finding the right police chief for Walsenburg.
If we don't pull this off decently and have the public kind of positive about it all, it'll backfire. Everybody on council is pretty well and agrees that we're going to go a little slow, make sure we do it right, got the right people.
The mayor says the city does not have to operate the department 24/7, but eventually he hopes to hire 11 officers. Meanwhile, they've applied for 2 state grants they hope will help fund the upstart costs of a new department. Megan Cloherty, News 5.